So to begin, you'll notice that I bounce around a lot from chapter to chapter, from section to section. In our class, the informative and the persuasive chapters are in one. Obviously, we're not going to be going over persuasion right now because we have a few more weeks before we're at that point. So I'm just going to go over the relevant aspects so that you are on board and can move forward in your assignments. So to begin, one thing to keep in mind is that an informative speech, and I like the way your book says, in your lifetimes, in your careers, you will be delivering and listening to more informative speeches than persuasive speeches. They're very important, and that is one of the reasons why that's the first thing that we tackle in this class is the information. A lot of students feel like, gosh, I just want to get to the persuasion because that's the really fun stuff. But the informative presentations are highly valuable. Anything that has to do with information and information that's used in a way that people value is considered a commodity in this world. And we can take that for granted. Being in such a wealthy country, we don't even realize that this is what we have access to as far as what we can know and the good information we can have and deliver to others that is useful is a very powerful thing. So back in history, if we think about who were the most powerful people in the world, not just today, but throughout history, what kind of positions do these people hold? Who were they? Who in history were the most powerful people? Some presidents, maybe? So we have presidents, we have Hitler, leaders, dictators.
People who have money.
Okay. Wealth, royalty. Okay, so we're looking at the church was one of them. So this information that was held is very powerful. What's so funny over there? What are your thoughts?
She said they're all small white men, so that made me laugh.
Okay, there's truth to that. We're talking about we're talking about civil rights and social justice movement. You're not wrong. So we have that power, that wealth, that information that other people value, and of course in history that's been hidden, and people have been kept from that valuable information. And now what we're looking at today is a room full of individuals in one of the wealthiest places in the world. You may not realize that, but you're like in the top 2% of the world. Even if you feel poor, you're not. And if you want to know anything, how do you get it? How many people do you think have this kind of easy access? Say that again.
Information, that's okay.
Yeah. Of course, we have the scholarly journals here, which is even higher, more elite type of information because you're college educated. This is something that is highly valued in the world. And because we're sitting in a room full of people that can just pull this out of our pockets and log in and get that information, we don't realize how wealthy we are, how privileged we are, how much power comes with this. So information is a commodity that you hold literally in your hand, and that's not common. This is a very uncommon place, and you are in that place. So basically, you are the royalty of yesterday. You're today's royalty. You have that power. You have that information so easily accessible to you. With that comes a burden of responsibility. And so one of the things that I cringe at is when I see people highly privileged, misleading and putting information out there that's very harmful to others. And that is something that we can freely do in our positions. So one of the things that we focus on here in this class is, of course, the ethics. What are you putting together? Is this information good? Even if it's a mistake and you Google something, you're like, well, I got this from this, article on Google, so, I didn't mean anything by it. We still have the burden of responsibility to make sure that that information is correct. We have academic databases we can follow up with. So that's the next step, of course, after we really get solid on our topics, is to start looking up that really good information so that when we deliver this information that's valuable to us, audience-centered, then we're doing it right, we're doing it ethically. So now that I've shared with you that information, how valuable it is as a commodity, going back to what's called a general purpose, and we're going to go back to this throughout this entire class, that's what the relationship we have with our audience. Okay, so a general purpose defines our relationship with an audience. So if you tell your audience that you're going to inform them about something, they're going to fully expect you to act as an educator. Okay, if you have bias, you will be open about it, but your purpose is not to persuade your audience to go in your direction, even if you do have bias in that. So informative presentations are highly valuable and they're so easy. That's why we're using the same topics for this. Not only that, but because it makes your workload a lot easier for the first two topics if you use the same topic. But informative presentations can easily go into persuasion. That's not our purpose. Now, if I tell you that I'm going to persuade you about something, what do you expect from me? How does our relationship change?
Change the way you think about or whatever it is that person's speaking of, but maybe before you didn't like it, weren't too sure about it, but what they're delivering to you is making you change your mind about it.
Okay, all right, so I could be asking you to change your mind. Okay, if you already agree with me, can I still deliver a persuasive presentation?
Yeah, you give more information.
Yeah, I can reinforce where you're at. So here we are, we're in a college classroom. And obviously, I'm a college teacher, so I really believe in education, and that's part of my thing, that I think that can tip the scales of social justice education. So I'm a real believer in it. That's my persuasion. You know that. I'm here. Okay, now, I'm going to try and convince you as college students to be college students. Okay, great. Okay, so,
Rapid facts like statistics,
okay.
facts that college graduates make more money, that we're successful in life, their children have better futures like in education or whatever.
It creates a culture, a different culture that you lead. So here I'm trying to convince you not to necessarily be college students, but to stay college students. Because I went to school for a long time. And I tell you, there were days that I did not feel like being a college student. How many of you feel like that? How many of you have dropped out and then come back? Okay, I did that many, many times. I didn't receive my bachelor's until I was 36. I was late, but I went back and forth and changed my careers, and it was just, and then I couldn't stop. But I know it's hard to be a college student. So my goal for something like this would be to convince you to stay. Makes things a lot better because in the end, your children will most likely go to college. You're setting an example. So that's my persuasion. To entertain is just enjoyment with your audience. That's your purpose. That's your goal. You're not trying to convince anybody of anything. You're not trying. There's a pure relationship that if I say something, it's probably not real. No, I'm not necessarily relying on facts. Now, there are more than 3 general purposes. You can have inspirational, motivational, attribute to another person. However, if you were to see this as a test question, midterm, then I would say we have 3 general purposes. And that's called an advanced organizer. We'll bring that up later. Okay, now that we understand a general purpose is something, and it's going to help you form what's called a specific purpose statement, which is coming next class period. Let's narrow this down more. You have a general topic, something about finance, about banking, something about the Second Amendment. You have these different ideas, but it's still too broad. So if I were to say education, and I'm to say, let's talk about SCC. Okay, I've narrowed it down a little bit. And I look at these categories. Where can I fit SCC in these categories? I could fit them in all of them, okay? But let's be realistic. I have 7 minutes maximum to give this presentation. Okay, so if I give a presentation about SCC and I categorize this under objects, what could I talk about? I still need to narrow it down more. Okay, the course of study. Okay, all right, so if I talk about the course of studies, I would be under concepts. So maybe I talk about the programs. And that's it. And even with that, I would have to narrow it down to maybe 2 big programs. Talk about that within 7 minutes. If I were to talk about the objects, let's say the place, the new building that's coming up, that would be the only thing I would talk about in that short amount of time. So what you have to do is make some decisions from where you're at, what you're going to talk about. Because you can see that it's not realistic for me to talk about all these different things about the college in just a few minutes. So that's how we start narrowing down the topic. Ask yourself, what do you know about your topic, and what do you want to know about your topic? Those are some questions to ask in order to help you narrow down the topic. So your jobs right now at these tables is to consider which one of these categories can your topic fit into, what direction. So you need to start making some decisions today. What are you going to talk about? Is it going to be in an object, a process, a concept? Is it going to be a specific event or an activity? Graduation, for example, the step-by-step process. Maybe it's about tuition, how it's used, the issues with that. Okay, so go ahead and consider that. Write a few things down. Discuss it with your peers.
You have to sort of speech. Yeah, you're
Do you know?
No, but all of the guitars.
Where's it stored?
The oldest guitar right now, 500 years old. Yeah, there was a seventh grade, so she didn't spend that on the process.
Oh, shit.
It was just a gift. Queen.
Actually, they use pounds. Pounds of money.
Well, the first one should say,
What do you guys got?
this happens. But it's just when you need me, slow it down. But then just replace it.
And what dance is that? How about you? You guys need some plans?
Or like, we talked about like, are we getting Nancy?
Example of things
Yeah, instead of doing here, you should do here. I mean, these are the definitions from your book of just what I had on the PowerPoint slide, page 532, which further the
Yeah, I can't.
concepts of informative presentations, which you can talk about. It just goes into detail. Fairly obvious, but sometimes if we're not sure where we're going, if we read through some of those definitions, it can help us narrow down those topics. Can we come up with some good ways to narrow down the topics? Is anybody doing technology?
Speeches.
Different types of
Speeches about objects. Speeches about
Say
people.
about conditions and issues.
Events, concepts, processes. Thoughts on
Okay, you've all been working real hard. Let's play for a few minutes. You have in front of you some hacky sacks. So go ahead and form some circles with your groups.
All right, guys, come on, play next. Let's go. Pipes.